All right, hi everybody. We're going to just try this again. This is our night episode, like I mentioned, of conversation with Joe. I'm going to try one more time to add our guest on the live. Hopefully, this will work better this time. Is the sound better now?
That does sound better. Can you hear me?
I hear you.
Okay. Yeah, I think there was a
Oh,
lag or something.
okay. I'm not sure why though.
Yeah. But
Okay. So
I think the last
mhm.
question you asked me is how does it feel? The feeling of grief.
If you don't
Um,
mind, I'm gonna ask you again the first question because we're
okay, sure.
restarting the whole thing since
Okay.
it's better now. So first question was how is it to move on with your life after you lose somebody that's so close to you?
It's very difficult to move on because that person has been a part of your life for whatever, reason or whatever length of time, but they are important to you. What happens is that when you try to move forward, you feel lost and you feel empty because it's like, what do I do now? But like I said before, being a man of faith, being a person of faith, you have to pray and help you because grief is very heavy. It takes over you and it takes over your mind. And once it takes over you, things come into your mind like depression, suicidal thoughts. You start to do reckless things. So moving on for me has been very hard since I lost my grandmother. But like I said, just praying and staying close to God and knowing God's promises keeps me, from going out on the deep end. So that's what it's been like for me, losing someone so close. Just put my faith in God and just about how I feel, so I won't feel.
Okay. And talk to us a little bit about the whole grieving feeling. How do you feel inside and the thing that's going on in your head?
The grieving feeling. I would, I would say empty, and when you feel empty, it's like something so a big part of you has been taken from you. So now and of course, sometimes death is suddenly, sometimes it's tragic, sometimes it's expected. But always leaves you a void, and you feel like, what am I going to do now? So you're kind of in a very dark place in your life because you don't know how to get over it. Every day you encounter is different. So I lost my dad when I was 20, and that was very hard. Um, and then I lost my grandmother at the age of 39, which was exceptionally hard for me. So it's just like a feeling of being lost, and it gets better with time, but you always get used to it. You get used to being there. And I would just sum it up in those two words,
And
lost and empty. I would just say that.
okay, and in that process, what have you? I know you mentioned prayer, and like we're both believers, so
Yeah.
I understand that part. But what other resources that had help you along the way to deal with the whole process?
I would say what helped me besides prayer, I would say venting, venting to my friends and family, keeping myself surrounded by family and friends, um, letting myself cry, allowing myself to be emotional when I need to be. Those things have helped me to cope. Talking about her constantly to people who knew her and that know me, and just basically just talking it out because if I'm the kind of person, if I hold it in, it's not good. So constantly talking about it, constantly talking about her memories, singing songs that she sang and imitating her has helped me to get through the process. Besides prayer is number one, but the other things that we do as humans, just talking and venting and somebody having a listening ear, because when somebody listens, you know that sometimes they may give you a hint of something they've been through, and and they give you that information, and nothing's better than someone telling you I've been through that, and they give you
Mm-hmm.
some pointers of their life. So I know that what I've been through is not just for me, is for someone else as well. Like my friend lost his dad, and I was able to run things off to them because I've already lost somebody. So I know what to tell you. Maybe one thing may not work for you, but maybe something else may work for you. I may say prayer that may not work for you, so venting may work for you. So those are the other things that have gotten me through the grief process.
Okay. And talking about friends and family, I know like we all different, so we all have different way of grieving,
Yes.
and I don't know, experiencing myself also during the past years. I know other people though they might not perceiving what you're going through well. You know,
Right.
some people might kind of like, because like me, when I go through stuff, most of the time I withdraw within myself, and
Right.
people might not understand that, right? They might think like you're shutting them down,
Right.
and while like you're dealing with something, they just don't understand it. So
Right.
my next question for you will be like, what is, can you share with us something that people had misunderstand about your grieving process and how this had affect you?
Yes. So, what people have mistood about a grieving process is, for one, number one is my grandmother was 101 when she passed away. So, when people hear her age, they go, "Oh, I get it. Well, she lived a long life. You shouldn't be sad." But you don't understand, people don't understand that my grandmother was a very youthful woman. So although she was 101, you would think she was in her 70s, her 80s, the way she was talking. So a lot of people misconstrued that her age, saying that I shouldn't be sad about it. And that has made me angry sometimes. Like, who are you to tell me because she was 101 I shouldn't be upset?
That.
Another thing people have said to me is she died in March of this year. They'll say something like, aren't you grieving a little too long? You still sad about that?
Wow.
So I do understand people are insensitive. So I think about that because I say, we don't feel it until it's us. So I keep that in the back of my mind because sometimes people talk out of ignorance. But those are two things that people have misconstrued about my grieving process, that she was an older, elderly woman. I shouldn't be sad. And that, or they'll say, she's going to heaven, so you shouldn't be upset. And I'm like, the human side is what's the problem. It's not the problem, is what I'm dealing with. Because of course the human side of me misses my grandmother. The human side of me misses the great wisdom and information that she once imparted into me. So um a lot of people, those three things I would say: she went to heaven, why are you upset? She died so long ago, why are you still sad? Or she was 101, why is that bothering you? She lived a good life. So those things to I try to weigh out the bad and good. I try to take the meat and throw away the bone. I try to take the meat and throw away the bones, because people can be insensitive sometimes. So that's the big three things that people have misconstrued about my grief.
Thank you so much for sharing that with us. Um, my next question, it will be, how, now putting ourselves on somebody, the other people's shoes, right? Who doesn't
Right.
understand what we're going through
Right.
while breathing. What's the best advice you could give to somebody
Mhm.
that kind of like knows somebody else who's grieving?
Mhm. Well, the best advice I can give to someone that knows somebody else who's grieving is just to be sensitive. Um, Listen to them, because sometimes people think that what you're going through is not important. But no matter how much you're not understanding it or how much you don't feel it, always know that their feelings are very real to them. So the way I feel is real to me. The way
Mm-hmm.
you feel is real to you. So you cannot discredit the way someone feels if they're sad. If they're sad, don't say things like, "Oh, it's not that serious. You'll be all right. Um, you
So,
should be, or you could be." Don't say those things. Talk to them in that moment. Say, "I understand how you feel. I'm so sorry. Um, let's talk about it because like you said, everyone grieves differently. So that's my advice to someone who's dealing with someone who's grieving. Always be there for them. And whatever is real to them, it has to be real to you. Although you may not see it, you have to put yourself in their shoes and say, I may not have lost my grandmother, but I've lost something.
I'll miss her.
I mean, I've lost a shoe, I've lost the earring, I've lost a job. So that feeling of losing those things may not be as important to you as others, but just know you've lost something. So if you're dealing with someone who's grieving, never try to play it down. Always make it seem like it's a priority. Whatever they feel, make it feel like it's a priority because you putting them as a priority makes them feel good sometimes. And that could be the difference in their day. Someone listened to me, someone understood me, someone listened to what I said and gave me some advice, as opposed to I lost someone, no one cares, and the people who are talking to me still don't care. You want to make a difference in that person's life who's lost someone, so that's my advice. Make them feel important. Listen to them. Make what they're saying important to you. Make it real because it's real to them.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Earlier, you mentioned depression, right? And it's something that a lot of us, especially like a lot of us, probably didn't even know that we were dealing with this until we got into the
Yes.
pandemic.
Uh-huh.
And and we lost not only like physical lives, like a lot of
Right.
people lost their jobs and
Hmm.
friendship,
Yes.
relationship. So when in ba- you know I'm gonna ask, like, based on what you
Yeah.
went through,
Hmm.
when do you actually feel or know that, okay, right now it is too much for me, I need to seek professional help? Because
Yes.
it's another thing also in the black community that
Hmm.
they don't talk about, they don't prone it, and they tend to call you crazy if you
Right.
mention therapy and all of this. So
Right.
yeah.
Well, I would answer that question as, when do you know it's too much and you need to speak to someone professionally? I would say, just like you said, when it's too much for you, when it's weighing down on you, when you don't feel like getting up, when you don't want to eat, when you don't want to live your normal life. You may be sad, but when you don't want to get up and go to work, when you're unmotivated, when you start to have these thoughts of hurting yourself or, you know, ending your life, I think that's when it's time to go get professional help. I mentioned earlier about prayer, and everybody doesn't have a prayer life. And that's not to put anybody down, but everybody doesn't pray. I was raised up when something goes wrong, you pray right away. That may not be everybody's, therapy. So I think that when you feel like not yourself, and when you feel like you want to cause harm to yourself, or when you feel like you're unmotivated and you just have no drive to do nothing, every now and then it's all right because you need to grieve. But when you feel like it's an ongoing, continuous thing that your family around you can't get to you and your kids need you, but they can't find you, or they can get to you mentally, I think it's time then to talk to someone that's professional help. Because I feel like you said, in the black community, we don't want to talk about a therapist because a therapist a therapist feels like a therapist feels like something's wrong with us. And we need to adapt that just because we need a therapist, there's nothing wrong with you, because
Exactly.
things come on to you that you wasn't expecting. That's why they're called emergencies. They happen and you don't know how to deal with them because you didn't plan for this. So you need to sometimes talk to someone who is more equipped and who has this grieving thing has been redundant for them. So they know what to say to you. They know how to get through to you. Because sometimes you talking to yourself and your family is not going to hit it. You know why? Because you're sad, your mom is sad, your brothers and sisters are sad, everybody's sad. Everybody's dealing with it differently. So you need to speak to someone outside of your inner circle and get that help. Nothing's wrong with getting help professionally. You're not crazy.
No.
That's not the situation, because the mind is a fragile thing. Anything can set you off. So what needs to happen is, if you feel like you can't go any longer, or you feel like you just don't want to make it, you go seek professional help. You go see your pastor. You go see maybe an elder in your family. You go see somebody who went to school for it. But I'm an advocate for it. I haven't gone to seen it because I talk to myself a lot, so I
Oh,
get
good.
myself out of it. But if ever there was a time that I needed to speak to someone, I would definitely seek professional help. And that's not even saying that you're crazy. I just would seek it to make myself, my mental, feel better.
And we human, and we all
Yeah.
have limitation. Nobody is all knowing. The
Right.
only one who all knowing is, God. So it's
Yes. Yes.
okay to embrace your feeling and
Hmm.
deal with them. And when you're not okay, it's as well okay to say that I'm not okay, I need help.
Yes. 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 It's okay to say I need help when you feel like, even when you feel like you don't need help. Sometimes you talking to a professional and them saying certain things to you will unlock something that can help you heal. So they may say a line, or they may ask you a question that you never thought to ask yourself, you know? And like I said, like you said, it's a stigma on a therapist, but I think you should always go see one if you feel like, if you feel any way like I need to talk to somebody and nobody's around. Those guys are paid. They know what they're doing. They're learned. And I think you should go see somebody to help you, not for the long haul, but even for that time in your life, that season. And you may find a friend, or you may find somebody that you can talk to all the time. You may make a great friendship out of something like that. But I'm an advocate for speaking to someone professionally. Yes.
All right. I know you mentioned earlier that some people even came to you and said, "Oh, it's been so long that she passed. You should have moved on and
Right.
move on with your life. Be all happy and everything."
Right.
Do you think we should put a timeline on grieving?
No. Um, when you put a timeline on grieving, you end up disappointing yourself because you have an expectation. And the mental and your emotions are so unpredictable that you putting a timestamp on your feelings and emotions, you'll end up making yourself angry. You'll end up in more depression. You'll end up finding yourself in more of a rut because you said, by now I should be over this. I still cry over my grandmother. Yesterday, my family went to the grave site, and my mother sent me a picture of her tombstone, and I broke down crying in the bed at home by myself, thinking that I was getting stronger. But it takes a smell, it takes a picture, it takes a song to set me back. So dealing with grief like that, you should never put a time frame on it. Um, and that ties in with the conversation we had before about the specialist. If you feel like you're supposed to be out of the grief by now, then maybe you should go speak to someone. I always say never put a time frame on it, because grieving is healthy, but then there's a time when grieving is unhealthy, and then that's when I think, going back to the other question, you should go see a therapist, because there's something that is has a hold on you emotionally and mentally that you can't move forward. But just speaking, I would never put a time frame on your emotions. I would never put a time frame on your grieving. Never put a time frame on how your heart feels. I would just say the best advice I could give anybody grieving is try to better yourself. Try to cope, even within yourself. If you see that you're down and out all the time and you're crying, try to get to the root of why I feel so sad. Of course, we feel sad because it's a great loss, but you know that the person that you lost doesn't want you to be sad. And they would be sad knowing that you were so sad. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
you have to think, how would my grandmother, how would my dad, how would my brother or sister want me to move on in life? And sometimes this is the kicker. Sometimes you feel guilty because you find yourself laughing and joking and going out, and then you sit down and you say,
Then
maybe
you remember.
I shouldn't be so happy because I did lose you, you know, and and then you find yourself feeling guilty, and you're like, I shouldn't be happy, I should be in mourning. But does your family member want you to be in mourning? Yeah, we miss them and they want you to respect their memory and stuff, but the best way you can go about uh, uh, reverencing their absence is living the way they wanted you to live. Like my grandmother, she wanted me to be saved. She wanted me to be upstanding. She wanted me to make it. You know, she was always concerned about everybody in the family. So the most I can do now is basically move in the way she would want me to move. Be happy. Be into God. Grab hold of God.
And
Do the things that she would want me to do in life, because that's what would make her happy, is that I would hold on to God, because that's the way she knew. And that's what she wanted me to do. So, in trying to honor her life, just do the things that she taught me so many years before she passed, and just live the best way, because she had nothing but wisdom. And we knew in our family that if you held on to God, you would make it. And out of all the things that we try to cope with, the best thing to do is try to live the way they taught you. And her thing was, if you work for God, He will work things out for you. And just hold on to God and don't stop. Don't stop holding on to Him. And when you do that, you make them happy. So, sorry, but that's the best way we can cope with that as well. See, I didn't know.
I know I'm taking a moment right now. Like, okay, so I really want to say thank you for doing this,
Yeah.
and I never told you before. The main reason why I wanted to personally discuss this with you is because you didn't know, right? While you were
Hmm.
going through your process,
Hmm.
um I lost a cousin, right? And then
Yeah.
right after that, I lost a pastor that was very close to me, and
Hmm.
then I lost my uncle, and it's been like a bunch of like back to back event. But
Right. Right.
I saw you. Everybody who knows you know, like you're very open,
Right.
which is I admire a lot because not a lot of
Yeah.
men are up for anything like that. But
Uh-huh.
watching you being so open about it on social
Hmm.
media kind of triggers something inside of me because
Hmm.
I was like I was amazed because I was like, how can you be going through this
Hmm.
and be so verbal about it? Because
Yeah.
like I mentioned earlier, I mean, like usually when I go through stuff, I kind of
Hmm.
like shut down and
Yes.
withdraw on myself and not talk
Right.
about it.
Hmm.
But that's why I was like, more people, need to hear about this and know that
Yeah.
it's okay to be feeling the way you feel. And
Yes.
obviously, we all know that we all have lost so much
Yes.
in the past year, and there's no
Yeah.
need to feel uncomfortable about it,
Hmm.
no need to feel like guilty about it,
Yes.
and it's okay to kind of embrace this feeling in order
Yeah.
to move on and deal with them.
Yeah.
So I really wanted to say thank you
You're
for
welcome.
coming
You're welcome.
and sharing with us. I wanted to mention earlier to everybody who's listening that there's different stages of grief. I don't
Yes.
know if you were aware, right? So I'm gonna list the 5 stages of grief for
Yes.
anybody who's listening and might not be aware. So the first stage is denial, where
Hmm.
you go through the phase where you just don't want to accept that this is really happening. So you reject the fact, you like, you don't want to talk about it, you're
Hmm.
uncomfortable. The second stage is anger,
Yes.
where you'll get mad at the situation, like why this person. You can't even go ahead and say why not me,
Right.
because depending on how close you were and how important they were in your life.
Hmm.
The third phase is bargaining, where you be like, um if you like a religious person, you can even go ahead and say, God, like, I would have done this if you had kept this person
Right.
alive,
Right. Right.
or like, oh, bring it back to life, and I'll change my life, like some
Right. Right.
stuff like that, some silly stuff like that. And the fourth stages is depression. You go down, you don't talk
Hmm.
about it,
Hmm.
you're feeling horrible. And the fifth stage is acceptance, when you finally accept the fact that this person is really gone. And of course, like, not everybody go through these phases
Hmm.
the same order, and they don't deal with them
Right.
the same way. But
Hmm.
I guess the most important thing is to know, like you mentioned earlier, when it's becoming so hard that you
Hmm.
can't carry it by yourself
Hmm.
anymore. When is it to release it? And
Yes.
if you believe in God, release it to God. Or if you want to go to therapy, it's okay.
Yes.
It's okay to feel bad, because our emotion, like you said, they can if drive you crazy.
Drive you out of your mind, out of your mind.
And you will do things that you will never expect to
Right.
be the one doing, if you don't do
Right.
it them properly.
You hit it on the head. Exactly.
So I know you gave a couple of advice earlier,
Mhm.
but just for everybody who just got on the line, what would you say to somebody who's currently grieving?
I would say to someone who's currently grieving, and I would say thank you, Joanne, because I didn't think about these things as well to give this advice. Number one is it's okay to cry. It's okay to grieve. It's okay to miss them. Even if you want to laugh and smile, it's okay to laugh and smile because they wouldn't want you to be in such a stupor. I would say find somebody and talk to them. Everybody's different. Everybody's not vocal. Some people shut down, but the Lord always puts someone in your path. Like Joanne, you saw me. You can always talk to me. Always come to me. And even when you don't feel like talking, I will talk for you while we're talking because everybody's different. So I would say find somebody and talk to them and find out, have they been through, we've all been through loss. So then, because holding things in sometimes can break your heart even the more. So I would say find somebody and talk to them. Number three, never have expectations of your feelings and your emotions. Never put a time stamp on when you should stop crying or when you should stop mourning. That's on you because nobody knows your relationship with that person. Nobody
Yeah.
knows your dependency on that person. Nobody knows your background with that person. So depending on, because you can know somebody and not be close to them and they die and you cry one day and be finished with it, or you can know
Mhm.
somebody for all your life and lose them and feel like you want to drive your car off a cliff. But whatever you feel, never have expectations on what. Even if you cry a day and you don't cry no more, never say I should be crying more than this. No, if that's all you cried, if that's all you felt, then you go on and you live your truth. That's what's good for you. Just because you cry one day and you feel like you should be crying forever, no. Because even in my family, I cry at a drop of a hat. My mother cries sporadically, and we have some family members that don't cry at all. So always, so one, never put a time frame on your grief. Number two, never stop yourself from crying. And number three, find somebody you can talk to. A therapist. That doesn't mean you're crazy.
So we lost our connection, but I wanted to take the time to say thank you to everybody who's joined today. Thank you to our guest for sharing his story, his experience with grief. It was very moving at some point, but it was needed. And like I mentioned, grief is something that we don't talk about like many other different subjects. And I'm very glad we had to do this today. And as a reminder, we all human, we all dealing with different things, and we need each other's support. And especially during this past couple of years, it's been rough for everybody, but we all in this together, like I like to say. And whatever situation you're going through, don't let your mind trick you into thinking that you're alone. We're never alone. You're not alone, and it's always good to speak up and speak out. Once again, thank you for joining our night episode today, and I can't wait to see you guys next week. Bye.